death comes, there is this chance, free from the grossness of the body, you can merge with the mother, the child clear light mind, meaning your normal mind, and the clear light nature of mind that becomes really apparent when you're free of the body, can merge and you attain liberation in the bardo. But this is kind of rare, and that's why we practice our whole lives. But but in the Nyingma tradition, they would read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is basically a guide to the afterlife. But someone who's Christian may not see the Buddha Amitabha or the Buddha Vairocana. They might see, their mother or the Virgin Mary. But basically, they say, according to karma, your mind stream carrying the seeds of karma, because you have countless unresolved karmas, will push you towards rebirth somewhere. And that is why how we live, determines. They say if you want to know what your past karma was, look at your current circumstances. If you want to know what your future life will be, look at your current actions. So, whether you believe it's this specific or not, like Buddhism views things as nothing is lost, only transformed. That something that is that has life in it transforms into something else. Like even the body, goes back into the earth and nourishes the animals there and becomes part of them, or maybe becomes part of the earth or the fire or the elements. So however you view that is totally up to you. But this is what Buddhists say. Basically, conditioned by karma, we take a rebirth in one of the realms, and until we've become fully liberated, and purified our mind and purified our karma, we continue to take rebirth. So they take a fairly relaxed, like I found Indians take a fairly relaxed attitude to this life, because they're like, future lives, no problem. But personally, I'm a bit more like, well, what if there is no rebirth, and maybe this life does matter to more, and this life is very precious. So um, I think it's good to try and make peace and, do the things that really matter to you, because you don't want to get to a certain point in your life and have a lot of regrets about not fulfilling your dreams, not setting healthy boundaries, not seeking out what was really important to you, living just for other people's validation. And of course, all of this is still a big mystery, because we can't be 100% sure. So enjoy the mystery, and respect the finality and the dramatic change of what death represents. It's not a new age fantasy, and it's also not necessarily a complete oblivion, which is what I think a lot of Western materialists really fear, which is why they never address this issue and just pretend they're going to be here forever. It's kind of ridiculous that we're creating this whole, huge society, and we make life so complicated, when really, the earth is here, and there is enough for everyone, but we're fighting over things that, we're so enmeshed in our identity and our nationality and our gender and, dualistic. We're caught in all of those things, and we forget we are no different to the autumn leaves. We are so impermanent, and nothing, we are just travelers in this world, nothing, we can't take anything with us. But it's such a sobering thought, and a reminder to live fully in the moment and take care. If you live fully, mindfully, and ethically and compassionately, and take care of every moment of life that is left to you, then there is no fear with death, because you've lived and taken care of everything that needed to be taken care of. So the question of death is, how are you living? and be prepared to allow this change, you know, in every moment, and make peace with this change, so that we've already died 1,000 times before the final death comes, and we can face it with peace and dignity, you know, because only love endures. So, do you have any? I think that's all I really needed to say about. I mean, there are certain prayers that Buddhists do, you know, depending on what tradition you belong to, that they would invite. You know, Tibetan Buddhists would, especially, they do this practice called Poa, and they pray to the Buddha Amitabha. You imagine this red Buddha. He looks like Buddha Shakyamuni, but he's made of light, and there is a golden pathway. He's a bodhisattva who prayed to make it easier to help those who have died. And you imagine the dead person going into the heart of Amitabha, into luminous awareness, this golden heart, into his infinite, this golden path into his infinite awareness. And you say, Om Amideva Shri, Om Amideva Shri, or you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and there's a good commentary by Chogyam Trungpa at the beginning of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which puts it in more of a modern context, by Shambhala Publications. Yeah, or, you know, there are obviously, you know, prayers for the dead in, say, a book like the Plum Village Practice Manual. There's some advice about what to do for the dying and prayers to say for the dead. But the main point is to live in such a way that you have wrapped up everything you needed to do, and live in such a way that you can die anytime, and it's okay, because you've been a good person and you have no regrets.
Okay, so is awareness continuous? Like what is the what are you when you're in that 49 days waiting to get born again? What are you?
You're the mind body continuum, the mind stream.
What is your? So it's just like a. No one really knows.
It's the stream of awareness that carries the seeds of unresolved karma, basically.
So like when you say the 14th Dalai Lama, that's his continuous stream.
Yeah.
Has come through from
the very
first one, so it's the same person.
Well, is it though? You know, if you're like an 80-year-old woman in Australia, and then you die and you're reborn as a little boy in Ethiopia, you know, are you the same person? You're a continuation of karma and awareness.
Where is that stream of consciousness?
Where is it?
How can it contain the karma if it's just a stream that can just flow, and flows along, I guess, with other streams of consciousness as well. There's other ones there too, not just yours.
I mean, I think probably what you need to ask yourself is, where is this self now? Where is this you?
Well, that's what I mean by awareness. So, to me, that's the continuation. That is I guess, the soul. That's what I don't understand about Buddhists when they say no soul, because there's something.
So there's a relative self, conditioned.
And there's another self, isn't there? That one that carries the karma, that's in that stream of consciousness.
Basically, yeah. I mean, this is Buddhists would say, Theravadins would say, practice for yourself and see, where is this self, you know.
Well, that's what I see when I do meditation.
But where is this self, you know? Where is this self?
Yeah.
Like, if you die, is it which part of your body is it? Is it your bones? Is it your heart? Is it your lungs?
No.
Even your mind. Which moment of mind is it?
It's outside the body, I think.
But when you look for this self, you literally can't find it. What you find is various elements in.
Light that seeking.
What you
state.
find is causes and conditions coming together for the functioning of a nominal relative self, but it's lacking in a permanent, unchanging nature. Even when we say like luminous awareness or Buddha nature, it's still not a solid, unchanging, permanent self, you know. I think the Ganga is a good example. So there is continuity. The river is flowing. It's just in a constant state of change. The awareness is there, but it's, beyond birth and death. It's beyond gender. It's beyond culture. And even that is not, you look for it and you can't find it. So it is, like Tibetans would say, it's the union of clarity and emptiness. The fact that it can know things but cannot be found. The fact that it can comprehend things, it can reflect on things, but it has no lasting essence. It functions, it appears, like even the world. It functions and it appears, and it grows, and it's funny and it's sad. It's all of these things, but it's not as solid as it appears. It's in a constant state of change. Basically, I think the answer is you only have to know it. You just have to experience it for yourself. Yeah. But I would say, there's some nice teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh where he talks about non-self. And I mean, the Heart Sutra is really the Mahayana ode to emptiness, but it's really hard. It's quite hard to understand, actually. I think, I mean, maybe it's my own shortcoming as a teacher, but ultimately, it's like the rug, the rug is there. And when you say, where is the rug? I will say the rug is there. But when you pull it apart, is it the sheep's wool? Is it the dye? Is it the Persians who have 1,000 years of culture of making this rug? It's all of those things. So where is this self? It's the water, it's the sun, it's your parents, it's Australia, it's your culture, it's your gender. But take away one of those threads and the whole thing comes undone, right? And you think, well, there's something there, there's something beyond that. But even that is a very subtle, mysterious moment-to-moment awareness thing. And Buddhists would say it is the very act of self-grasping. It is the seeking this permanent self that makes us create karma and keeps us bound to the wheel of birth and death. And it is the undoing of this self-grasping, because as soon as we say, I'm separate to everything else, that's when we make karma. And that's when we start caring, we become dualistic. We start, I'm Adam Moore and my people, my family, my country, my gender. That's the root of all the suffering, right? So basically, when the Buddha was about to get enlightened, his own fear manifested as Mara, the demon of ignorance. And he saw that he'd built this idea of self around him. He said, oh, ignorance, I see you now. How many lifetimes have you kept me trapped in the prison of birth and death? No more shall you build houses around me. This idea, this very idea of self is what is keeping us, this grasping at self is what is keeping us imprisoned and making us make karma. So when the whole thing comes apart, what goes on, like some Theravadins say there is cessation, that is the end of suffering, there is no more self. And others say, no, there is just awareness without craving, and then Tibetan Buddhists would be like, no, you become a Buddha,
So they can't even decide what common.
But the point is, I think the point is that you keep, because it's like if I say India is like this, but you've never been to India, You know, you can get a passport, you can buy a ticket, you can read some books about the culture, you can learn how to tie a sari and speak Hindi, and all of those things help, you know. But ultimately, you have to go to India to understand India.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's like standing on one side of the river going, yeah, it's like that. But you've got to taste. And the Buddha said, you know, talking of philosophy, it's good to have awareness of these things, but ultimately these are just a guide.
Yeah. Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like the finger pointing at the moon. So don't just keep looking at the moon, and eventually the moon will make sense. Don't worry too much about the finger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Buddha said, you know, someone who just like gets obsessed with philosophy and doesn't practice enough, they're like a person talking to other people about cows, you know, but doesn't own any cows and never tastes the milk and the butter.
Yeah.
They know the best kind of cow, and they have arguments. No, this is the best kind of cow, not that one. That's fake. You know, the point is practice and taste it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's cool. And the other one, I was just thinking when you're talking about bodhisattvas coming back down in different bodies, can they come back into animals? Do you reckon?
I think so, yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, like, Buddhists are not like Christians. Buddhists think that you know, beings can be born as animals or insects, and even insects have Buddha nature.
Yeah.
And they even think that spirits can be born in trees. They don't think a tree of its own nature has Buddha nature, but they think a spirit could live in a tree and have Buddha nature. So Buddha nature being a Mahayana concept, not a Theravada. But yeah, just our karma and our mind, you know, become more dull or more sharp according to how we're born and what host we have, you know. There's also a good documentary, actually. It's called Liberation on Hearing, or the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I'll send you it. It's a good. Okay. It's a bit old, but it's a good documentary.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's quite nice, actually.
Yeah.
And
okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, and they say, you know, when you're dying, it's scary, like when the awareness becomes unmoored from the body, but it's also this amazing chance to get liberation. So it's probably worth reading up on that a bit as well. Yeah, but it's without a proper explanation. It's very esoteric, right?
Yeah, no, that Chogyam Trungpa one is good, and they've recently done, you know, a re-release of it and updated the forward and stuff. I got the forward from the library. It was good, but it's very dense, you know.
Yeah.
It's a big thick book, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
But you can look at different parts of it. I couldn't just sort of start beginning and read through it. I don't know if you're ever meant to do that with that book. But yeah, it's good. It's good. Interesting. But very, you know, dense. Lot to take